It's time for Geocache Talk. Whether you are at work, in the car, or wherever you are, we hope you enjoy this show about the great sport of geocaching. If you're watching live on YouTube, you can be part of the adventure tonight in the chat room and participate with others as they watch the show. If you are listening later, please give it a like and subscribe on your favorite podcasting app so that you can get all of the weekly Geocache Talk goodness. If you have not become a patron of the Geocache Talk Network, what are you waiting for? Patron levels start as low as a Bison Tube level at $3 a month. The sign up is easy. Simply go to the Geocache Talk website and click on the Become a Patron button, or go to patreon.com/Geocache Talk. Patrons now get the famous Blackout coin, invites to special events, and other really great items throughout the year. Become a patron today. Have you subscribed to FTF Magazine yet? FTF Magazine is the #1 geocaching magazine available. It is a quarterly magazine that you can be part of. Submit your geocaching milestones and adventures to be published. FTF Magazine is also interactive with puzzles to solve and the hunt to find Spartacus. If you can solve the puzzle or find Spartacus, then you will be entered in to win a special pack tag. Every new subscription, you will receive a special swag pack. Subscribing is easy. Just visit FTF's website, ftfgeo.com. Don't miss out and subscribe today.
Big thanks to Derek of Baker 6 Clan and our featured patrons, Jokris, Skippy Teddy 83, and Casper Fly, Retired Guy, Team Murky, 1940 Chevy, Joyful Nomad, Crime Fighter 89, Demac 04, OLB 1992, CP 590, and our new patrons, Retro Gaming Gal, RVN Pendragon, Rega, Pizza Boy 2600, and Gooeyesty, returning patron Kitty Catch, and Happy F33 T3. And I got through it. I think I did them right, Jesse.
I think you did it right.
Along with me is my co-host of many years, Mr. Memphis Mafia.
Just a few years.
Just a few.
Yeah.
And our special guest tonight, co-hosting with us, is Super Nate.
Hello, guys. Nice to be here.
Now, Super Nate is he is going to be with us as long as nobody starts a fire in Tennessee, in Cleveland, right?
Yes, that would be it'd be good if that didn't happen. Yeah, I am on shift tonight, so we're hoping I don't have to run quick.
Yes, we thank you for your service, and yes, you are on call, ready to go. But hopefully, it's a quiet night.
Yeah, I think you're more than on call. You're sitting in the fire station, right?
That is correct. Yep, I'm currently in the office at my station.
Nice, love it. All right, well, let's just jump right in. I don't think. Let's see. As far as should I
nothing
mention?
going on in geocaching this week? Nothing this weekend. There's
nothing
no news.
going on.
Nothing going on.
We probably want to at least do a couple quick notes here. Cache Fest starts this week.
Wednesday,
starting Wednesday. Yes, I leave tomorrow for the trip over. Looking forward to it. A lot of the team is already in Memphis. Obviously, Derek's there all the time since he lives there, but Chad is now in Memphis, and Tom, and quite a few of the Cache Fest crew is there already. So looking forward to a great week. So
it is not fair.
I know. Well, you'll be there. You get to,
I don't even leave till Friday. I've been planning this every year, and but life. I'll be driving through the night, in fact. So you got to do what you got to do. But I'm not the only one. Tons of people will be there. Yeah, Jesse had some training come up, and it's like he can't miss it, and you do what you got to do. At least you can make it for part of it. Oh, no. Yeah. Well, you have to be there for the main event anyway. So and Cito next day or whatever. But I'll absolutely. But that's not what I planned. I planned on already being there today. My original intention was to be there starting today and just to get to play the whole week.
Yeah. So Eric will be down in Memphis. Cool. Looking forward to it. I think Geo Tribe 5 is going to make the trip down. I think. A lot of people will be there. So looking forward to it. So Pizza Ninja will be down soon. Like I said, the whole team will be around. So anyway, looking forward to it. We do have a lot to cover tonight, so we're just going to dive right into Adventure Lab changes. And we all have some hot sports opinions about what's going on with these changes. I pulled a few. We're going to talk about some of the ones I found online that I thought were interesting, and then we're going to also kind of give our take on what we think is going on. So the ones we're going to talk about tonight came about with the forum post that came out on July 3rd, in case you haven't seen it, and it'll be in the show notes. Basically, they announced a couple things. They announced that the maximum geofence of going forward will be 500 meters for it says for each stage, but that's not really. There was some confusion on this how do you want to put it? This aspect of it, because, and we'll get to it in a minute. So I'll tell you what some people were thinking about what they could do. They could extend the fence out. That's one. They also mentioned that Adventure Lab is intended to be a location-based game. This is a core to our vision. And so they sort of mentioned about their intent with the Geofence adjustment. Then they went into, they recognized this change may negatively impact some existing adventure labs. When this is regrettable, we believe this changes the best long-term interest of the platform. They did not mention yet, and I don't know, somebody could update. I haven't found one yet, though, of when they're going to retroly change current ones. If you try to build one today, or in my case, a few days ago, when I was trying to get everything ready for Cache Fest, and I saw that and I go, hey, what's this 500 meter thing? Well, we'll get into that in a minute. The other thing that's on there that was mentioned is deleting Adventure Labs. That is, and let's start with that one. Because that's not the big elephant in the room. The geofencing is. So what are your guys' thoughts on this? The second one that was mentioned, which was you can delete your Adventure Lab, but you do need to know that if you delete it, you can't undelete it.
I guess the question would be, because I'm always a little leery because, and I know HQ is tired of hearing about this, but we all remember the geocaching challenges, not challenge caches.
Mm-hmm.
You remember the challenge was like take a picture, all these weird things they tried for one time, and then they decided it was a no-go, and they just made them disappear. So it came off your stats. Didn't matter that you found them or hit them or anything else. And maybe somebody can already tell us this, but because some of us always have that fear, because I went crazy with those things because I was new in the game at the time, and then those just disappeared. I'm like, oh, all that effort was for nothing. Let's say I have a lab and I do it for some reason, and now with these new things, I can delete it and archive it. Does it do like caches and it still stays and shows in your geocaching history, or does it magically disappear? I don't want to be the person that tries that, so I would just want to know, because you put in a lot of effort. A lot of people find the labs. Hopefully, when you delete it, you're deleting it because for some reason it's no longer available, or you don't need it anymore for that event or whatever you used it for, or the building changed or whatever. But hopefully it still stays part of your history. Is there any documentation on that? That's what I would be. Okay.
Yeah, there was some mention of that. And there's one other item I forgot to mention, which is the emails, which we'll get to that as well. But
yeah, I like that.
Yes, it all stays the same. The only thing that does change is the fact that it gets poof off the list. Nobody can do it going forward.
Yeah.
So it'll still show up in your stats. It shows up in as far as that is concerned, but you can't. The weird thing, well, I don't say weird. So don't archive your Adventure Lab if you want to repurpose it or do something with it, because once it's deleted, you can't undelete it. So
that may be the reason why they're doing that. So I'll tell on myself, so nobody else has to get in trouble. We had the Cache Fest last year.
Yeah.
One of the side events that I hosted, I was in charge of those labs for that. That was the concert. Well, the labs were specifically to be done during that concert. Like Josh was on stage, there was questions, and the artist was on stage, and there was questions you answered based on the set that was there, right? They weren't hard or anything, but it was specifically for that. Well, afterwards, they're still sitting there.
Yeah.
And you can, of course, just make them not public like we did for a long time.
Right.
But I think a lot of people after some events just leave them out there, and then it's just kind of like geo-trash at that point. Like it's not really for anything. It's just geo-trash. And that may be what they're trying to get rid of. And it's an automatic way to go, look, you got a bunch of these for a mega. I know not everybody hosts megas, but you got a bunch of these for an event, or you did these for a special thing that was going on. And now nobody can really get them without cheating them, because we all know there's ways to cheat them. Now there's a way to get rid of them. Now, what I did was I took them and totally probably violated every rule, which is why they do a lot of this stuff, right? And moved them to a different area and called them recycled labs. It's like, this is from a mega. If you went to this mega, you've already found them. I just put them in an area and just put some puzzles in there. So people, I'm like, if you didn't go to the mega, here's a chance to use these. This is a recycled lab.
Yep.
Probably don't like that, but there was no rule against it at the time. So I did it. I thought somebody could get something out of it. It wasn't doing anything sitting there in the non-public list. So why not do something with it? But I would think that this suggests that they may not want you to just repurpose those. They want you to use them and then get rid of them. That's just a guess.
There was a point early on, I don't know if you guys remember, but when Adventure Labs first came out, megas would get, and we'll get into that too as well, but megas would get them, but they were time bombed, I guess you could call it, if you want to use that. But they were like, they didn't last, and you couldn't change it. That megas, they were part of the mega. They lasted maybe a week after the mega, and then they were gone. There was you had no control over whether they stayed or not. But I don't know if y'all remember that or not. But
that was pretty soon after megas first.
Right.
It seems like I remember that right soon after megas were first released. Yeah.
Well, so before we jump back to the other ones, so Nate, what are your thoughts on do you care if they let you delete or undelete, or?
I mean, my thoughts would be the same as Jesse's, in that, there comes a time when the lab that you've created, the location has changed, and the lab is you kind of have to archive it, because either the place closed or the location's not there anymore, or whatever the case is. So before they came out with archiving, you could just make it go offline, and so then you wouldn't see. That's what I did for an event that I hosted, where I had a set of labs for the event, and so the people that came, I had Christmas ornaments out over a park that was real close to where I was hosting the event, and people would go and visit these ornaments to get the answers to the questions. Well, then after the event is over,
that's cool.
Then I need to take the ornaments down, because it's in a public park and there's a lot of people in the park.
Right.
So then I just I turned the lab off and made it go offline, so that it's not showing up on the list anymore. It's still credited people with the finds, and they still have those attached to their account, but it's not live on the map anymore.
Right.
So that's how I did it, and I would hope that by archiving a lab, you would still keep those finds.
Sure.
And it just archives it like you archive a traditional cache.
Correct. Yeah.
I would assume that's a thing, but I'd hate to lose all that effort.
Mm-hmm.
Because you put,
I agree.
people put work into it. You don't want it to just disappear.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
and when
exactly right.
when you archive a traditional cache, you keep that cache fine.
Right.
So I would think that labs would be no different.
Yeah.
Yeah. I say you try it first then.
Well,
we could try it on maybe down the road. We could take one of Cache Fest probably and archive it.
Yeah, we could do that. Wouldn't you
See
hate
when
to
you go
like
back.
archive one, especially for a mega, and then you get 8,000 emails the next morning? Like, what'd you do? You took away my file.
You ruined my stats.
I'd be like,
No,
send it to Gary. Gary did it.
No, yeah, blame
Now,
me.
I would assume that they're not going to have any issue like that. But if you archive it, everything stays the same. It just locks it. It's gone. You just can't unarchive it, and so
Correct.
In some situations, I think that's the right thing to do. I don't know that recycling it is a great idea, although that's what I chose to do. But
I've done that.
Well, I've seen
a set of labs.
There's a set of labs that travels around to mega events. I don't know if any of you guys have seen that.
That's what I was just going to say.
But there is a set. I know of one set in particular. I'm sure there's more, but I've been to a set of love labs that showed up at a mega that I attended, and I did the lab, and then I attended another mega, and that same lab showed up in the parking lot of that mega as well, and they just changed the coordinates to the different location.
Yeah, we talked about that actually way back on the show. So hopefully we didn't start anything that causes problems. But I said basically I can just take my labs to every event I go to, and people can get an automatic 5 to 10 fines based on what size it is, and I don't see any rule against that. It's like it's the Memphis Mafia labs. Have you got them yet? Here you go.
Yeah, here we go.
I'm glad somebody's doing it because it's funny. So
the roaming labs. Okay, so some of the folks in the chat room have sort of mentioned something that was in our notes, and this is something we can now start to discuss, which is why would you change a geofence to 500 meters? So there was we all know, but but there's reasons why, and I think it was short-sighted. That's my personal opinion, and I'm gonna mention a little bit why I think it's short-sighted. But so Super Nate, you want to kind of tell people how it's affecting some of the ones that you know about, and kind of give people an idea of why? Because I've heard people that are not really, I wouldn't say in the know, but are fairly new to, or they're sort of intermediate geocacher level, and they're like, 500 meters, that's no big deal. Why would you need more than 4 meters?
Well, the thing is, when you have your geofence set really, really low, and I've run into this many times where you get to the location of the lab and you're right on top. I mean, you already know what the answer is. You're on top of it and you're moving around. You're trying to, but the question won't appear. That's when you have the geofence set really, really, really low, and the problem with that. The problem with that is, if you're in an area, with poor reception, or your GPS on your phone is not kicking in, or there's a lot of different things technology wise that can make it difficult for your phone to pinpoint exactly where you are, and you have to find that sweet spot. Then it makes it incredibly frustrating to.
Gosh, it does.
Incredibly frustrating. I think you and I even did a couple like that when we were in Longview, where we're just circling and I think if I remember correctly, it appeared for you, but it wouldn't for me. And so then you've got it answered.
Stand on our head.
And you're ready to go to the next one, and I'm still circling around the monument trying to get the question to appear on my phone.
Yeah.
So I think it's not good to have the geofence set really low. The reason that people have the geofence set really, really high is in something that we were discussing before the show started, is people have started doing geo art with Adventure Labs. And I can speak for here in my area. There's a geo art for the state of Tennessee that's at a rest area along the interstate. And so if you look at the map, it makes a TN on the map, which is really cool. I think it's awesome. I actually own a set of labs in that TN about firefighting, believe it or not.
Cool.
And,
wow. What a shock.
Yeah, shocker. And so, so you can go to the northbound side of the interstate, and you can sit in a parking lot, and you can do all 150 of those labs by sitting in one parking space. It takes you about 30 minutes, and you'll be done. You got 150 caches. And we have the Geofence set to the maximum amount, which, if I recall, is like 3,100 meters, something like that.
Yes.
So with the Geofence narrowing down to 500, then now you believe, shocker. I mean, it's just so inconvenient. You actually have to go to the northbound and the southbound side of the interstate to do all the labs.
Right.
But and I'm sure you're going to get into it, but geocaching said that the purpose for the adventure labs is to be a location-based game, that you are physically visiting a location and answering the questions based on the location that you're at. I don't think the intention that they had for adventure labs was to be a locationless sport. Right.
No.
Which is probably what they're trying to fix.
Let's be honest. Yeah, we all know that, first of all, any rules you set, geocachers are going to push it to the absolute limit because we're creative, right? We're going to push it at least to the limit, and some people are going to break it. But like, we go to a cache and we're like, oh, this is within 16 feet of GZ. This is such a big area. And then we're like, wait, 500 meters or 1,600 feet. That's too small. We have different standards when we're doing stuff. If you're doing a regular lab cache, like almost any lab cache that you're setting out that's not a geo art, you can probably do it within 1,600 meters. I mean, 1,600 feet, which would be the limit now.
Yeah.
If you're not getting within 1,600 feet of ground zero, that's probably, we're probably playing funny business at this point, right? I mean, let's be honest.
Exactly.
And let's be honest. I'll full disclosure. I'm not against lab caches or any creative use of them. I found a bunch of them. They're not my favorite, but my wife loves them, so we go do them. I've found over 1,000 of them. I think they're interesting. I love the way that people are being creative with them. Now, not everybody is. Within the rules of geocaching, that was the rules. When that TN was made, they followed the rules. It may not have been the intent of geocaching, but it was the rules, right? And when they change this, people will still find a way to make it their own. So I don't think it's going to affect very many geocaches other than like geo art stuff. Gary has a different opinion because of one he's building personally, but nobody intended to be driving down. Geocache was never intended to be a drive down the road, stay in your car. I found it click, because you guess the 4 ones you can't get wrong. No, that was never the intention of labs.
Right.
Having said that, I'm not against them, as we'll talk about later. I'm not against them. I just think, I can see where they're coming from with this. That's not the intention. Like, I have to get out of my car to find a geocache? No way. This sucks.
I have to go to the north and southbound side.
I have to turn around.
Hey, Jesse's want to talk about. He found a cache on his last trip. He didn't get out of his car, so I don't think that should count.
And it was a real geocache. Yeah, and we pulled our van right up to the LPC, reached out the window, and pulled it back in.
Hey, I've actually done an earth cache where it's set up where you can answer the question going past it at 70 miles an hour.
Yes, there's one in Houston.
There's Texas like that. I know.
Yeah, there's one here in Tennessee like that too.
Yeah, actually, it's a virtual. It's not an earth cache. There's a virtual in Houston, and literally, you just have to look. You just have to be driving, and carefully glance to the right, and you can tell what it is. And it's like, there it is. I got the virtual. So, not the intent, but
some things are huge though. You can see what they are. It is what it is. Right? But again. Intent and how geocachers are going to use it are always going to be different.
Correct.
I think we've all found an earth cache or a virtual. I know all three of us have done this where there's plenty of times, and Jesse, I know you hate these, but you pull up close enough to a big sign that talks about some extinct volcano. And now for the one that I found of yours in the Rocky Mountain National Park, I got out of the car and I did the sort of manual calculations that you requested, and I did it, but I didn't go down the hill to it.
Well, you're not supposed to. So
not supposed to.
That's a national park. You might want to be careful.
Better not. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there are some that they want you to literally hike. Like you've seen I think you've done some of those, haven't you? Just
I've got ones that true hike to areas, check stuff, and that's a good example you brought up though, and I think this is a good parallel to draw right now. Earth caches originally, if you find some of the older ones, a lot of those are just pull up and read an answer off a sign, and that was not the intent of them. So they changed it to where that's not what they're supposed to be. You're supposed to actually get a lesson from it based on what's there and what's on the cache page. So this is exactly like that. They're saying, okay, we let them out like this, but now we're going to tighten this down a little bit. I think there's other reasons they're doing it too, but I think that's always been in line with what they've done. They release something because you're never going to guess how geocachers are going to use something. If they release a new tool tomorrow, they'll think of 99,000 ways that it's going to be used, and there'll be a brand new way within a week. They're going, we had no idea they were going to use it this way. That's just you have a bunch of puzzle nerds around the world. We're gonna get around the rules. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, I think there should be a way, and there probably will be. I think there should be a way to send an email to I wouldn't say to justify the reason. And I know there are cachers out there like there's never a reason. There's never going to be a reason why you'd want to have more than 500 meters. So I understand that thinking, but one of the ones that came up early on, and I know Eric mentioned it, other people have mentioned in the chat room. It was one that came up, and I'll read you guys the comment that I pulled about it, which was one person wrote the following: might this new guideline affect the adventure labs and airports? As a traveler, we have appreciated being able to complete adventure labs while waiting for our flight or disembarking or getting luggage. So what are y'all's thoughts on, should we allow two things. One is, should we allow adventure labs and airports because some airports, you guys know, are like, it's a hike from one side to another.
It is.
And so should we allow for this kind of dispensation to people who want to put them in airports? Do we allow them to appeal? What are y'all's thoughts on airport ALs going forward?
So I say yes and no.
Okay.
The no is, even though I have sat in a TSA security line that's 2 hours long, and I've pulled up my phone and scored 5 adventure labs, waiting to go through TSA. I've done it.
Yeah.
I don't think, to me that is, I don't like it. So that's the no. The yes is, there are a lot of very cool features at airports that I think could be utilized very well for adventure labs.
Right.
To highlight the cool features of the airport. The very first thing that comes to my mind right out the bat is Detroit. If you guys have ever flown through the Detroit airport, they have a really cool light show a light tunnel that you can walk through, and I think that would make a very cool adventure lab. So if you reception is really, really bad in airports, and this would probably be one of those times when you would want to use the full 500 meter geofence just in case, like, your phone's not catching up with itself. But if you took somebody to a unique feature, something that's really cool, you say in the Adventure Lab description, you need to go to Concourse B, across from Gate 7, and you'll see check out what's on the floor at that location, and it's something that you probably would have walked right past if you hadn't been Adventure Labbing. That to me would be a really cool use of Adventure Labs, where you have to go to a specific location and answer a question, and I think that would it would make a layover. You could pass the time at a layover doing that.
Right.
But the type of adventures, to me, my personal opinion, where you're sitting in line at security or you're sitting in an airplane, while it's kind of cool to score a quick few finds, something just doesn't settle well with me on that. I like to physically visit a location.
So if we're going to be honest about it, first of all, I agree with Nate, but I agree with you, but I'm going to phrase it a slightly different way. If we're going to be honest about it, it's almost cheating. Now, I kind of think of it like, so let's say that you go to an airport and and you're going through Terminal A, and it's an airport like A, B, C, D, E, and it says sit down, and there's 5 virtuals, 1 in each terminal, and just Google the answers and send them to me, and you get 5 virtual finds. Would anybody feel that was okay?
I wouldn't.
What's the difference? Because most of the time when you're sitting in there, it's answers A, B, C, D. You don't have to go anywhere. You can sit wherever your terminal is and get all the ones in the airport. It's just about that level. Most of the ones that I've come across on the labs in an airport, you guess the answer until you get it right.
Correct.
And you don't have to walk to the different terminals. You can sit in your seat waiting on your gate. Sit at your gate, just wait on the airport and get 5 free labs. Now, having said that, I'm going to do it every time because I'm going to take the 5 finally 100% of the time. But like nobody, and a lot of people don't blink an eye at that, but if that was 5 virtuals, which we probably consider real caches, for the audio people, I'm using air quotes, but real caches, we would go, this is bogus. This is not real. But with labs, we totally accept it like, sure, I'll take the 5 free smileys. So while I think there's a good use for them, we could tighten that up a little bit. That's kind of silly in my opinion. Again, if I pull up next to a lamppost and I pick it up and there's a cache under it and I wasn't even looking for it, I'm still going to sign it.
Right.
Is that cheesy? Yeah, but I'm going to do it every single time. So
right.
I think it's a cheesy way to get 5 free finds, but we're going to use it while it's there.
I agree with Quincy in the chat down there where it says that seems the same as armchair logging a geocache. Not my cup of tea. I would agree with that.
It's hard. While it's legal, I agree with him too.
Yeah.
Now, have you done it? Have I done it? Has Gary done it?
Yeah.
The answer is yes. We all have.
Yeah, and that's really for another show too.
And I don't think we want to get into the numbers conversation because we don't have time. Right?
Yeah,
let's
not for tonight.
Tonight.
Yeah, because multiple choice to me is, I don't create multiple choice for the most part. I did a 10-stage recently for Cache Fest, and I threw in, I think there's one of the stages is multiple choice, but I try to avoid them because I think we've all done the ones where I don't even know what the Adventure Lab was about. All I know is I clicked buttons until I got all 5. It's like, and that's not the intent.
No,
they should have. That one should be created in such a way that if you put the wrong answer, it like penalizes you. So you got to wait like 5 minutes before you can answer it again or something. That would force you to know.
That's a lot of programming though.
Yeah, I know. And
it ruins my favorite game. I like to guess when I get there on labs before I look up the answer. I always try to guess before I put in the real answer.
And yeah, exactly. And there is some debate in the chat room about some people talking about Marcellus was chiming in about it's too restrictive. The traveler may have to exit security to get it, or locals won't be able to get it, which is very true.
While valid, I live down the street from Disney World. I'll never get those caches. I'm not paying $500 to go in there and get those caches. You know what I mean? There's always areas.
Well, and that brings up a different guideline to Adventure Labs. What isn't it in the guidelines that admission fees, that you shouldn't put them in places where admission fee is required?
Ooh, so the airport, are those going to be gone?
They're not going to be gone. You
can't go into the airport behind security for free.
No, you can't. I guess what I'm saying, one thing Eric said was it's 0.3 miles. It should be fine. Which I don't know. 500 meters.
Not in all airports. There's some big 500
meters. I think that's 26 feet. I don't know.
26 feet.
I like how Craig mentioned earlier. Is like, you guys talking meters. He likes that. It's like,
we don't know what meters means until we convert it on our phone. Until I go in here and go 500 meters equals 1,640 feet. I have no. It's just fantasy land until that point.
Yeah, I don't know meters. I don't know what that is. We use God's measurements. We use feet.
Imperial. Now there's a good question. So if you can't charge for it, does that mean that they may have to get rid of the ones at the airport?
Well, they won't get rid of them. They're just going to be. They're going to do a data. They're going to do. I mean, they're not going to go through each one of these things. I mean, spoiler alert for everybody. They're going to do it from a software update, and they're just going to update all of them. They're not going to think twice about whether yours needs to be or not. I mean, they're just going to do it.
Will they allow it in the future then? Will they allow people in the future to put them inside airports? Because we know people are really getting permission for all these, right?
Yeah.
So I have just pulled up the Adventure Lab guidelines because I was curious how it was actually written.
Yeah.
And so it explicitly states that you cannot require players to pay a fee for a product, service, or access.
Okay.
When you expand that, they say they do allow they do allow an Adventure Lab if you have to pay a fee for parking, such as a required parking. You can have an Adventure Lab in a place that requires a parking fee. But one thing that it says is if the adventure can be completed in areas accessible to the public without a ticket, such as in a public area of an airport, the adventure is currently allowed. So if you were to create what I was just discussing a little bit ago, is if you were to create a Adventure Lab inside of security, in the secured area, to feature, unique features of that airport where travelers have to go and visit to answer the question, then the way that the guidelines are worded, that would not be allowed.
Right. Well,
1,600 feet is nothing at an airport.
Right.
By the time you go through security, ride the bus to the terminal, that's way beyond that fence.
Right.
So it sounds like we will not be getting as many in the future.
Right.
One thing too is that Eric mentions, like, well, it should be 0.3 miles, but I think one thing we need to remember is it's not a floating 500 meters. So it's not, you're going to have to sort of pick a spot and go with it. See, so one of the things that somebody brought up early on when this first came out was, well, I can set the Adventure Lab at point A, and then 500 meters, 499 meters from there, I can create Adventure Lab number 1. And then from there, I can create 499 meters from there, and I can extend this fence 5 times. But that's not what it is. When you set
not how that works.
When you create the Adventure Lab, you're going to be setting it. This is interesting, though. I might be able to try this. So
it's 500 from each pin. It doesn't really matter where the initial pin is. That's just a pin on the map. Each pin, each stage will have a 500-foot circle around it.
Right.
Which
radius
kind of, though, would allow for, and I need to try this. because
don't
in
interact with each
theory,
other.
yeah, because see, in theory, I think that you could then extend it, because if I walk 499 meters to get to stage 1, and if it's a 500, if that pin allows for a 500 meter fence around it, I could then walk another 499 meters to stage 2, and I don't think it's going to let you do that. I think that the 500
I'm
meters,
pretty sure they're independent. There's not a crossover. It's 500 feet for each stage. It doesn't matter where they are. They could be all at the same place. You could be standing in the same place and get all 5 of them. Or
yeah,
you could
we
be
need to,
you could be a long distance apart for each stage. It could be all around town.
we need to double
Those are
check, because
independent of each other.
I don't think you can do that though, Jesse. I think you're stuck. I think that they want
They're not going to have all 5 stages within 500 feet. You couldn't do half the labs that are out there. 500 feet would just be for each individual pin. If you had to do them with all 500 meters, you couldn't even do a historic walk down the street, which is the purpose of a lot of them. Each one gets their own 500 meters.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. That we actually had to adjust the geofence for the TN Geo Art to a narrower, and they just basically the person who organized the whole thing just gave us updated coordinates so that we narrowed down it still says TN on the map. It's just not as wide as it was.
Oh, okay,
but it's close together. So everything is each pin you can answer the question within 500 meters of that pin, but the individual pins don't have to be 500 meters apart.
Right. Okay.
And they can be more than 500 meters apart also.
Right. Makes more sense. Well,
yeah.
Here's the no, there's got to be something. So for example, let's say we set the Adventure Lab up in downtown Memphis. Let's just do that for example.
Yep.
So by what you're saying, I could do stage 1 in Oklahoma.
No, because there's a different rule for that. So there's another rule that would conflict with that, saying that all should be done within a certain amount of time, generally within a same geographic location. That's one from the very beginning. So that would conflict with Oklahoma now. But you could set stage 1, and then 200 or 1,000 meters away, you could do stage 2. Another 1,000 meters, you could do stage 3. But you'd have to have them in the same geographic location, because one of the original rules was it's intended to be done within a certain amount of time. I don't remember the exact thing. And all within one setting, right? Like you're not supposed to do one here and then go to New York for the next one. But that's an original rule. But that wouldn't have anything to do with this new change.
Correct.
Yeah. So you if you were doing Memphis, you could have stage 1 at the Arkansas-Tennessee border, and then you could have stage 2 on the east side of Memphis. I mean, you could have all 5 stages scattered throughout the entire city, or you could have all 5 stages confined within a small park. But yeah, you couldn't do one. Somebody said you were told a max of 2 hours. I remember
that. I thought it was something like within a few hours, and maybe they changed that down to 2 hours.
Yeah.
So that makes sense, because you don't want them spread out too far.
And right now they don't. Right now they don't have a review process though, right? So you could set it up, and it may take more than 2 hours, but then it would. What's the how does an Adventure Lab get disqualified? Is it just from somebody reporting it?
Yeah, you can report it, and then they could take it down.
Then it has to be it only gets reviewed if somebody would. Yeah. Now here's the
problem
thing
with that is nobody's getting permission.
Right.
Well, even less than Geocache. There's no review process, right?
Yeah. Right. Well, here's a situation I want you guys to talk about, because KC11 was involved with the Lincoln Highway and the Route 66 setup, which is really cool that you can go pretty much all the way on Lincoln Highway and do Adventure Labs the whole way. So his comment was, it definitely would be nice if they could grandfather the labs, which they're not going to do. Sorry, buddy. I think it's going to affect a lot of the Lincoln Highway and Route 66 labs out west where cell service is limited. We are going to talk about at the end of the show how you can work with, and we've got these set up that Scott Miller created. It'll be in the show notes how you can do Adventure Labs without cell service. That's not really the discussion for tonight, but this is an example of one of the situations, and I'm going to give you our situation as well that we're running into with Cache Fest. But this is a situation where you're trying to do legitimate. I think they're legitimate. I think they've spent a lot of time and effort to do good history along the Lincoln Highway and get you places to stop and do labs where it's not just a rando, what color is this sign? It's a green sign. Okay, good. There you go. You got it.
Yes. However, I was part of the Lincoln Highway as well, and I have 10 stages. They're all researched, all historical locations.
Right.
However, having said that, and I'm a big fan of that, and I was part of another one down here that was the Tamiami Trail. So it's a big trail, people getting together, a big long route like that, right? However, geocaching was never intended to be a drive-through activity.
Right.
It's supposed to be a drive and stop. And I think what a lot of us, I'm not saying the Lincoln Highway is like this, and the ones I know about aren't because I've done some of them myself. It's supposed to be a drive. You go to a location, there's something cool historical there. You answer the questions based on it. You go to the next location. A lot of them have morphed to, I don't even want to stop driving. I want to see it, get my answer, and keep going like a power trail. And while there's no rule against that, I don't think that was the original intent of it. You know what I mean? Drive and go. We're supposed to be drive by geocache. We're supposed to be taken to different locations. The ones on that trail, from the ones I know about, they're not done like that. You're supposed to go and check them and go and check them and go, like actually stop and look at something. I think that's what they're trying to get away from, is the just drive down the road and click a button and never even have to stop on the interstate, right?
kind of like as some people mentioned in the chat room, the M game, where you can just,
it's not supposed to be dropping a bomb that you digitally bought and get 8 million points. Right? They're trying to keep it separate from that.
Yeah, that's a different game.
It's a blast cap, sir, and but so here's fundamentally where I want to go with this. These are adventure labs. This is not geocaching.
How's it different than a virtual?
Right. It's not.
Is a virtual geocaching?
Not in the traditional sense, because there's no container.
Geocaching,
physical geocache. That is correct.
Right.
Geocaching was intended when geocaching was developed was to be a physical sport where you found a container and signed a log and visited cool locations, finding physical caches. That's the overall intention of geocaching. And yes, there are some virtual types.
Yeah, and
it's all part of the big game of geocaching.
Right.
Is it the original geocaching? Nowhere close.
No.
They painted themselves into a corner a couple times. Locationless geocaches used to be a thing. And they, like I said, they basically painted around, and they go, this is great. Let's add locationless caches. This is great. Let's add virtuals. And then eventually there was nowhere for them to stand. They're in the middle of the room, and they've painted the whole room red, and they're like, oh crud, what do we do now? Because
they got rid of them.
So they got rid of them. Well, they kind of, in a sense, painted themselves into another corner here, because they're like, Adventure Labs, we think they're great. Let's put them out there. We've got thousands now. There was 50,000 is what we're at now. We're past 50,000. I mean, so we're at I don't know how many stages. That's
It's gotten to a point where somebody could start geocaching today, and in a week they could already have 1,000 finds or 1,000 finds in their cache count, but they've never signed a single log.
They've never seen a geocache before.
They've never seen a geocache before, but they already have 1,000 in their find count.
So here's the question of that. Does that matter?
Well, that's another. Yeah, that's kind of a side question.
I know we're kind of on a side note, but some people. My favorite thing about this game, and we don't even have time to get into this, but my favorite thing about this game is you can play it however you want. Like there's some people out there that only find traditionals. You know, there's probably some people out there that only do lab caching because that's the game they found. Mm-hmm. They don't want to go tromping through the woods, right? They don't want to like sign some nasty Tupperware in the woods. They only want to do lab caches because that's the little video game they found on their phone. Now, would I play that game? No, not even a chance. That wouldn't be my flavor of game to play. But you know, it's all part of the same game. But is it the original intent? No, but neither is Where I Go. Neither is, you know, Earth Cache, Virtuals. None of those are the original intent of the game, which is go outdoors, look for something that somebody else hid. Mm-hmm. That doesn't make them any better or worse. It just makes them completely different.
Right. But that I guess my point is that they're wanting to change it now because they feel like it. This is my opinion. I feel like that I think they feel like they've gotten out of control with Adventure Labs. People have talked about GeoArt, you know, that there's, you know, this is something that is an issue. I'm wondering though, if to me, it's an overreaction. They should have just grandfathered everything in and said, okay, from now on, let's leave it. But they went to the extent of saying, from now on, it's 500 meters. Not only that, we're going to change every geofence from the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's like, well, you know, and they even said that's their comment in the their thing is, well, we're sorry. You know, Adventure Lab is intended to be a location-based game. This is the core of the vision. Inspire and enable outdoor adventure, exploration, blah, blah, blah. Our intent with the Geofence adjustment is to require players to physically visit the adventure locations in order. Well, see, but you are physically visiting an adventure location. If it's an Adventure Lab, it's a location. You're visiting it. You have to be
not
there.
If it's 30,000 feet away from it, you're not visiting a location. You're not going anywhere near GZ with some of these things.
You are doing. Let me see how I can word this. Regardless of the geofence, you're doing an Adventure Lab if you're within, I don't know, even if it's 500 miles, you're doing an Adventure Lab.
No, now, you're logging something. Convince me. Tell me now how driving down the interstate, getting credit for geocaches is your idea of geocaching.
No, I didn't say it was. I'm not saying it is.
Not. None of us believe that that's what was ever intended or is even legit geocaching.
It's not geocaching. It's Adventure Lab. Adventure Lab's not geocaching.
Your geocaching stats.
It shouldn't.
That's
so then let me throw this out there.
It should be separate. Adventure Labs is not geocaching. I think we've.
I don't agree with you. But go ahead. Nate's got a better one. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Nate. Go ahead.
So then let me just throw this out there. What is your guys' thoughts are on should Adventure Labs be a separate website with a separate find count and not be attached to your geocache find count?
Not
Might
now.
as well.
Not now. You can't go back and take people's caches away at this point. Think how many milestones that would mess up for people.
But they, I mean, I agree with you 100%, but they did that with waymarking 15 years ago.
But waymarking never came as a geocache find.
Yes, it did.
Geocaching challenges did, and they stripped those away, and people hated that.
Waymarking counted as cache finds when it first came out, and then it was very quickly. It didn't last long, but then once people started crying foul, then they eliminated them. Second, when you looked at somebody's find count, it would say this person has found 2,000 caches, and then below that would show their waymarking find count. And then they did away with it altogether.
But it didn't count in your total geocaching. It showed waymarks as a separate line, like benchmarks.
Briefly,
not initially.
Waymarking counted
I don't think I was in the game then, because I remember waymarking, but I thought it was like benchmarks. They weren't in your actual find count. They were just
switched it
there like benchmarks are.
It did not last long. It literally lasted maybe a month or two. But
how terrible is that idea?
I was not.
The other thing
about somebody just spent all kinds of money, because geocache has been around and there's expectations now, and went to find their 10,000th cache. They've got a sign, they got their whole family there, and tomorrow you strip away 500 of their finds, and now they only have 9,500.
Yep. I mean, for me,
that is not the way to run a business. They would. I couldn't imagine they would do that.
They did it early.
If it was for me, I've done just shy of 1,000 Adventure Labs. Just yesterday I got my 15,000th, and we did pictures and sign and all that. And so if they took away my Adventure Lab find count tomorrow, then I'd be back to 14.
What? Right. That
would be terrible. Now, if they'd originally done it and separated them, like labs are over here, Adventure Labs are over here, these are over here. It's not part of your find count. Sweet. I've been all on board for that, because that's a different part of the game. Or even if they said going forward, like starting in 2024, Adventure Labs are going to be counted in a separate item. We're not going to retroactively take anything away. Okay, cool. Now, I'd probably never do another Adventure Lab, but if it doesn't count in geocaching finds, I don't care about it. But that's just my style of playing, right? I think they'd be okay even going forward saying this was a certain time, 2024 on, Adventure Labs are a separate category over here, and that is what it is. You can't go backwards, though.
Yeah, I agree with that.
One thing I want to point real fast is that we're still talking about the way it was prior to July 5th. There still was a fence. So I want to, I know your comment, Jesse, is you could do it from your home, from your couch. I could not do it from my couch. There are no, even with the giant geofences that were out there, there were no Adventure Labs near my house that I could armchair.
But so that's your house. There are near other people's. If they live downtown, there probably is.
I know. I understand. But I mean, there was a fence. It wasn't like it was a free-for-all. There was a fence. When you pull it down to 500 meters, I think that it's going to affect, well, the one that affects that is one thing we're doing in CacheFest, which is an interactive Adventure Lab, which is kind of probably not really, well, here's, let me back up. What when you think of Adventure Lab, what is it supposed to be? I know that they say it's supposed, and I know you guys have an opinion as far as like in your mind what you think an Adventure Lab looks like, but it's supposed to inspire. It says that they don't even mention it. It's just supposed to be a location base. They didn't even tell you what it's supposed to be.
Here's the thing, and I like how it originally was, and maybe we can see it diverge again, but I would like to see Adventure Labs issued to people have regular rules like they have now, be slightly different than ones going to megas, because those are generally temporary labs anyway, right? It's set up for that day. There's going to have something special on the grounds. I would love to see those be totally separate and have different rules, and those be more of the experimental stuff like they were again. And then the ones that are issued to people in those drops, those are meant to be there for permanent. That's theirs. They own those. Those should be two separate conversations, in my opinion. And you can really push the rules with them and stuff like that. Like I had one in the past where you had to do a rock climb to get the thing at the top. Well, that rock climb was only there for one day. It was part of a mega event. So that wouldn't, the rules, I think those should be separate entities, in my opinion.
I think that's very much true.
Rules. Yeah.
they should allow for more creativity for megas. For example, what if, in theory, you put an Adventure Lab on a riverboat and there was a excursion up and down the Mississippi River? You trust me, you're going outside of 500 meters pretty quickly. So you're now not allowing there to be any kind of interaction, with those. Somebody also mentioned earlier here's another problem that I think occurs, and I don't know what they're going to do with it, but K-Blast mentioned about, we're talking all about Adventure Labs that we're involved with, but you realize that people purchase. Remember, we talked about this a few weeks ago. You can buy a premium Adventure Lab. Well, they don't call them premium. There's another term for it. But you can buy this for the Smithsonian, for example. The Smithsonian has Adventure Labs. They paid money for. I don't think we're going to run into an issue where it's going to. I think they're going to be okay with 500 meters. But what is it? What happens? It's sponsored. Thank you. Sponsored. So
yeah, there should be different rules for that, just like GeoTours, right? That's a business arrangement, just like trackables, like the Jeep trackables stuff. Those are a different category altogether. Whatever they negotiate with, because they're paying money to HQ, they negotiate different rules. That's just different rules. I have no issue with that at all. They paid money. We got it for free.
Right.
Well, I guess you can say premium, whatever, but whatever. You know what I mean? We were playing the game anyway, whether we got Adventure Lab or not. But I don't know. We're not going to get to all the topics we want to talk about tonight, obviously, because it's a long time. But I personally think if you're one of those people that's worried about the fine count and everybody else's stuff and racing people and everything else.
Oh, I don't care about any of that. Yeah.
Don't, first of all. And second, if you don't like Adventure Labs, don't do them.
Yeah, and that.
If somebody came to me and goes, "I'm a traditionalist," do what?
All right, and that's geocaching. That's the geocaching creed right there. Is if you don't like to do a power trail, don't do it. If you don't like to do Adventure Labs, don't do them. Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah, and if somebody came to me and said, "I hate Adventure Labs and I only find physical caches, I don't ever do Adventure Labs," they would have a lot more weight to that discussion than somebody goes, "I hate them. I think they're stupid. How many have you found? 10,000 Adventure Labs." Shut up. Just move on. You don't hate them that bad. If you're one of those people that gets offended by it, don't do them. And if your ego is tied to, I got 10,000 caches, I got mine the real way, dude, move on. We're all playing a game. We're all having fun.
Right.
Play it however you want to play. If somebody wants to go out there and find 10,000 Adventure Labs, that sounds terrible to me. And never find a real geocache, happy day for them. That's great. Good for them.
I do, yeah.
Whatever floats your boat. Who cares? It does not matter.
As long as you are having fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could have a person go to the ET Power Trail and blow us all away in fine counts this year and have never found a gadget cache. Is that fun? No. I wouldn't want to only do that either. So I think you got to have a little bit of everything for everybody, right?
Yeah.
Imagine if geocaching was only power trails. That would suck.
Oh, no.
I probably wouldn't be a geocacher.
No, heck no. I wouldn't be a geocacher either.
No, I do.
And you'd be hard pressed to recruit people into geocaching too. If you said, "Hey, let me show you this really cool geocache that I found. It's in a stop sign on the highway."
Yeah. No, we all agree. We're all in agreement with that. But it's interesting the fact that I think.
Oh, look at this. K-Blast. So, said I had someone log a cache of mine last week. The end of all of their logs included 16,254 caches with 0 Adventure Labs.
They were proud of it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to find at least one just to have it on my find count, right?
Yeah.
But you got to have one of everything, but I guess you don't. You don't have to have one of everything. You can only find traditionals or whatever you want to do.
I tell you what
Tower
my
Hope,
thought are with
one word,
with these
yeah.
adventure labs.
Yeah.
I think adventure labs, you know, the word lab indicates creating something, and
Sure.
I think that adventure labs should allow a geocacher to let the creative juices flow and come up with something that's creative, that is something that you haven't seen before, something that's cool. I disagree with the guideline that something physical cannot be placed to complete an adventure lab. Some of the coolest adventure labs, the early adventure labs that I found, were part of mega events, but there was something physical there that you had to witness or see or experience in order to lab. And I think those are really, I think if you had the ability to do that, it would really enhance the adventure lab experience, lab being the keyword here, and creating something really special and cool, something that stretches the rules maybe just a little bit to create a cool experience. So that's where I see being the ultimate adventure lab. Like, I think that may even be what they wanted it to be in the beginning, rather than just dumbed down virtual caches.
No, I agree. And there are we have people in the chat room who have done some incredible adventure labs. I talked to Rich Reagan, R. Reagan. You know, he's been on the show before. We've talked about how you can really create a really cool experience with your adventure lab. I mean, you can make it be some really fun adventure. Or if you're into history, I love history, you can do some really cool historical type. I just created one that'll be released in Memphis, and it's going to be near the escape room. But I created sort of a historical great escapes, and so you learn about some of the great escapes over in history, and it was fascinating to go through and create those and go, oh man, I did not know about that. And so hopefully that'll, as people are waiting to do, you know, the escape rooms, and they want to do those adventure labs, they're going to like, oh man, I did not know that about his, you know, it's good historical. So there are, how to put it, there are either really good adventure labs, they run the gamut. There's some really sucky adventure labs out there. I mean, what kind of events? It's going to have 500 meters because that's
right, 500 meters.
That's what I can do. I can do 500 meters. That's all I can do. So,
having said that, you're doing something good with it, and kind of what Nate said just a minute ago, watered down virtuals. Let me ask both of you, what's the difference in a lab and a virtual?
I really haven't seen much of a difference.
Do we need both? Should we keep, not should we don't have a choice, right? But should they keep issuing virtuals like they're about to do again next year and labs at the same time? What is the difference between those two? Other than one, you go to an outside app, not outside, it's theirs, but another app to log it. And why wouldn't you do that on virtual? Like, I don't see much of a distinction now between virtuals and labs.
The difference is virtual caches have a review process. and so there's a review process to get a virtual published, and a reviewer has to sign off on it and make it go live. Whereas adventure labs right now don't. And that, I don't know if that's part of the problem or not, but
I would think that
caches,
is, but
it probably is, yes. So a lab is a hybrid of a virtual and a where I go.
No, it is not. And
Where it goes have.
I will
more
not be
to it.
mean to Marcellus, but me and Marcellus do not agree on that. I can talk about that for the next hour and a half. Where I Go can do more than any other cache type. They're not even close. So we disagree. Me and Marcellus are going to talk about that one another day. But Where It Goes is on now. If you start talking about caching offline, which I know we're already over an hour, but start talking about caching offline, could they be experimenting to replace Where I Go with labs?
They keep saying
Labs
that they're going to keep
anything compared to Where I Goes now. What could they be building in that direction?
Yeah. And see, one thing too is, are they going to get rid of multiple choice Adventure Labs? Do you think?
They're kind of ridiculous.
They are. Or change it. Change it so that if I guess, I got to wait 5 minutes to guess again.
Yeah. So somebody said virtuals don't have a fence or location verification, being the difference between virtual and lab caches. That's true. You can totally fudge. You can just lie on a virtual, except for now you can make them have a picture at the location, right? So
Yeah.
Go there. It's just a different verification process.
That's an interesting thing that you an idea that you bring up, Gary, is if you do a multiple choice lab and you get it wrong, that you have to wait 5 minutes to answer it again. That could be a solution to the multiple choice, because multiple choice labs, in my opinion, is not an adventure lab. Only one adventure lab set do I have that is multiple choice, and that's the one that's part of the TN lab, or the TN Geo Art, and that's because that's how that whole series was set up. But the ones that I've personally done just from my personal account for the fun of it, I don't do multiple choice, because I want somebody to visit the location and answer a question based on the location. And so I would be in favor of doing away with multiple choice. But if you're not going to do away with multiple choice, then have it in a way where you want to answer it correctly the first time.
Right.
Yeah. People would complain about that, though, having to wait 5 minutes. I actually hit the one, and now I got to go on.
Yeah.
Or if you get or if you get the multiple choice incorrect, then you lose a cache fine.
Yeah, I love that.
There you go. Have some skin in the game. You gotta wager. How many are you gonna wager? Yeah.
Well, I don't want to answer that question, but I was going to ask one question, but we would not have time to talk about it tonight. So
no. Okay. All right. I guess we should wrap up. I will get some final thoughts. I'll go first, because mine are pretty mixed. I don't know what to think, to be honest. I enjoy Adventure Labs. I don't really. They can be a lot of fun. They're not. To me, it's geocaching adjacent. Is that a way to put it?
Yeah,
I mean,
I can see that.
I had a great time. I got to spend an afternoon with Super Nate, and we got to do, I don't know, what did we end up doing? 3 or 4 Adventure Labs, probably.
Several. Yeah.
We did several. They were great fun. We cut up and had a ball. Is that something that I know some of them were murals, but are they going to become? There isn't anything about those Adventure Labs in my mind that is memorable other than my time with Nate.
Right,
I mean, that was, to me, it's like Super Nate and I walked around Longview, and we had a blast, and the experience we did was great. Now, are there geocaches where I can tell you exactly what went on when you mentioned the geocache? Oh my gosh, yes. I can give you a whole story about geocache. I can't really give you a whole story about some kind of crazy Adventure Lab. for the most part, I don't think. But so I'm still sort of mixed as to what to think about these. Other than they can create an experience if you do them with other folks too. So that's my
Yeah.
so over to one of you guys because I'm
Yeah.
kind of still mixed on this.
Well, let's let Nate go last because
Okay.
he's the special guest tonight. But I think you got kind of mixed in your final statement. We were originally talking about the new changes and what we thought about that. It kind of morphed into what we thought about Adventure Labs in general. So we kind of changed that discussion a little bit, which is bound to happen.
Sure.
So I'll hit two parts of that and then turn it over to Nate quickly. But we were talking about the changes, which we didn't even get to all of them tonight because there's so many things. But the 500-meter thing, I'm perfectly okay with that. Outside of megas, because I think megas should be more of the lab style. People's personal ones in general should be, you should be able to do, if you can't go within 1,600 feet of GZ, it's a weird lab, right? In general. It's not meant to be a drive-by or anything like that.
Sure.
And then we didn't talk about it, but they're going to send you emails. That's just a clerical thing, in my opinion, to know that you're getting some feedback. I like that. Not a big deal.
Yes.
The playing offline thing, that's been going on. If you once you open the location, you can guess at it later. I like that feature is there. What was the other?
You can delete.
Oh, archiving.
That just makes sense. You should be able to archive them afterwards, right? And if you want to archive it, archive it. I had one that was in a library. They changed the whole display, and I moved out of the area. Well, I'm not going to keep that going because they're going to keep changing the display, right? Now, having said that, that's my opinions on that. I don't have any problem with what they've changed. I see why they changed it. No big problem. No skin off my back. The second part, Adventure Labs in general, as long as Adventure Labs are part of the game of geocaching, even though it's kind of where you call it offshoot or a different kind of way or whatever because it's virtual,
adjacent.
I will continue to play. If they came up with a new cache type tomorrow, even if it was stupid, I'd still play it for some because I'm going to play every part of the game. The day that Adventure Labs are not one of my smiley finds, I will probably never do another one. I don't care about it because that's how I play the game. I play the game for the geocaching as a whole. I love playing the game. I have not found one benchmark after benchmarks went away. They're still out there, but I haven't gone and found a single one. And I never will, probably. I mean, unless something weird's happening, right? But if Adventure Labs became not a part of geocaching, they would probably tank. If they weren't part of the find count, nobody would be driving hundreds of miles and doing, getting them and everything else. So I think as part of the whole game, it's cool. Whatever they want to do with them, it's not my preference, but I'll play it because it's part of the game. If they were to separate it out like we joked about a little bit, that would be the end of the game for me. End of Adventure Labs, not end of geocaching. You know what I mean? Right. I think I don't see much difference between those and virtuals. I know they're experimenting with them. I hope they keep experimenting and add more features. But as of right now, I just look at them as a super fast virtual with no review process.
Right.
So that's my opinion on it, and I'll pass it over to Nate.
Cool.
And I'll still keep finding them, by the way. I'm not going to lie about it. I'm still going to keep finding them. So
exactly.
Yeah, I'm going to keep finding them too. I when I'm traveling and I see Adventure Labs, I'm still going to do them. I agree with the changes with bringing the geofence down to 500 meters. Because I also agree. I think that Adventure Labs should be a location-based game, just like geocaching, and you should have to go to a location to answer a question based on where you're at. I don't see any reason for it to be any more than 500 meters in a geofence to go and finish that Adventure Lab. Of course, we didn't touch on the email thing. I think the email feature that's only been out just a couple days now, and I love it. I've already gotten several emails on Adventure Labs that I've put out, including the firefighting one that I was telling you about.
Cool.
I had a review today actually from somebody that said that they're a fellow firefighter and they especially enjoyed my labs just based on the theme. And I would have never seen that review had it not been for getting an email.
That's true. Very cool.
I've never looked at the reviews on my Adventure Labs before, really. So that was really cool. And then of course, yeah, it's a no-brainer to be able to archive them. I'm surprised that ability wasn't there before. So,
yeah.
So overall, I do like the general premise of Adventure Labs. I like where Adventure Labs was going when it first came out, and then I think it got out of control. And that's why they are making these changes, just to try to kind of rein it in just a little bit, to bring it back to the original vision and mindset. So, I'm kind of glad to see the changes to happen, and I think there still should be some more changes, which could be a topic for another night. But yeah, I mean, I will still continue to do them, and I'll continue to. I've actually got a couple. I've got one credit right now, and my wheels are turning on how I'm going to develop it into something that people will hopefully enjoy.
Awesome.
I have a suggestion for you, but I'll tell it to you when we get off the air.
Okay. And I'm open to suggestions.
This may not be the intent of it, but it's an idea. So,
okay.
Awesome. Yeah. So we're going to wrap up. Again, in the show notes, we have some notes as far as, because some people mentioned, we didn't talk about it tonight. Some people mentioned that they made the fence bigger to try to help with cell coverage, which I think is an interesting idea, is the fact that, you're trying to help people out. You're not trying to get them to armchair anything. So, I mean, there are ways, and I know Jim Stark mentioned earlier that he had issues with the instructions that are in the note.
We could do a short video on that, I think, separate. We'll talk about that too. We can just do a short 5-minute video, because those notes, there's a lot to the notes, and maybe kind of go over that with people. That'd be super easy. Just throw up on YouTube. Yeah,
we could do that. So, all right. Hopefully that was entertaining and educational at the same moment. Edutainment, as we try to do. So, all right. Thank you guys so much. Thanks to the chat room for being so active and giving us some good info. And that's going to do it for tonight. So we will see you soon, hopefully at Cache Fest. If not, we'll see you soon. Bye, everybody.
May your finds be many, and your DNFs be few. May the terrain and difficulty both be less than 2. And whatever it is you're looking for, may it find its way to you. And may we all meet again.
Folks, we hope you've enjoyed the show tonight. Please email us your comment at geocachetalk@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. The show can be found on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Radio Public, or Spotify, as well as at the Geocache Talk website. Don't forget to click that subscribe button below and ring that bell notification so that you can see and hear the show on a weekly basis. And tell your friends about the show. Get them involved with us in the chat room. And until next week, don't just talk about geocaching, go geocaching.